Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. This is another Q&A with the IBFP. I'm your host, Boxing Nuke, and let's just dig right into it. The first question is from DeAndre Liddell. Who's the current best African American boxer? Don't think too hard. LOL. That's an interesting question, DeAndre. And let's be honest and unbiased. Here at the IBFP, we don't judge guys based off their race. We judge guys based off their skill set and what they can do in the ring. So I'm gonna be 110% unbiased with you. Is that I like all boxers, no matter what they look like or where they're from. In my pound for pound rankings, I have Terrence Crawford at number 1, 2, or 3, and that he's interchangeable with Canelo Alvarez and Mikey Garcia in my opinion, because I think Canelo Alvarez, he's done so much, he has to be pound for pound at the top, or Terrence Bud Crawford. And a lot of guys don't believe in putting heavyweights in their pound for pound. I do. And so, I also have Anthony Joshua in my top 5 pound for pound. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but that's as close as I can get to it. The next question is from Afro Cubano Americano. I'd like to see a breakdown of Andrade versus Canelo. I don't see too many people talking about that fight. That's actually a great question, and we'll actually put that breakdown together for you, because you know what, that would be a fantastic fight. I think Canelo would have a unique challenge in Demetrius Andrade. I think Demetrius Andrade, he's not a 100% proven fighter compared to everyone else in the middleweight division, but he could be absolutely the wild card, because Iris Landi gave Canelo Alvarez a lot of different issues and looks in that fight with a lot of movement, and I think Demetrius Andrade would do the same thing, except for the fact that Demetrius Andrade has actually bigger size, a stronger punch, and he's a better boxer. So I think Demetrius Andrade would be a bigger, stronger version of Iris Landi in that regard against Canelo Alvarez. But that's a fantastic question. The next question is from Ron. Would we be able to call you on the live streams? That's a great question, Ron. That is something that we're also looking into. We do want to create a call-in show so you guys can come in, and if you guys want to debate live on air, we can do that. And so that is coming this year. We're all getting it together with our technical support team, so we're getting it all right for you guys. But yes, we do want to start the live streams very soon, and then as we continue on, we're going to add in the phone line so you guys can call, and we're going to try to do monthly, then weekly, and just so on, and depending on the participation. But it's a great question, Ron. The next question is from D Jefferson. What's up, D, brother? You always have, I say, some of the most interesting questions. D Jefferson said, this new muscle Mikey is putting on concerns me a little bit. Toning down is one thing, but being that he's fighting close to his natural weight, I'm feeling like the muscle might slow and gas him a little. What are your thoughts on that, my friend? Thank you, D. D's an intelligent, boxing fanatic, and I'll tell you what. The reason why, and that would be a concern of mine for Mikey Garcia if he were just doing this at the Robert Garcia Boxing Academy. It would be a concern of mine if he just had a regular strength and conditioning coach or a nutritionist around him. That would be a huge concern. You're absolutely right about that. But the reason why it's not a concern for me is because the reason why a lot of fighters choose the snack program, such as Danny Jacobs, such as Sean Porter, these are guys you never see gas in fights. Even if they put on more weight, more muscle, these guys keep their speed and endurance throughout the fight. And the reason why Mikey Garcia is going to the snack program is because of similar fighters like this have shown proven success, because these guys look at different and innovative ways through nutrition and science to help you reach your maximum potential without gassing, without being tired, without having those drawbacks that just having a normal training camp would give you. But that's a fantastic question. Thank you very much, D. The next question is from Earl. What do you think about Ryan Garcia and Teofimo Lopez? I think that'll be a fantastic fight, if that's what you mean. But as far as each one of those guys individually, I think they're rising stars. I think they're building both of these guys into superstars. I really see Teofimo being a force to be reckoned with. I see Ryan Garcia a little bit behind him as far as development. He just needs more fights, more experience. But Teofimo, I know it's early in his career, but something about that guy makes me think that he could damn near be ready for the big time this year. It's a great question. The next question is from SwizzKid316. What's up, Nuke? Shout out from Texas, man. But hey, so if Canelo can beat Jacobs, is there anyone else at the moment at 160 that can beat him? I really don't see anyone else posing a threat to him for a while. That's a great question, SwizzKid. I'm going to be honest and unbiased, and I appreciate the shout out from Texas. If you look at that and break that down, my personal opinion is Danny Jacobs is the greatest threat, but depending on Demetrius Andre, he could be a huge wild card and all that. But if Canelo does away with Danny Jacobs, as I think it's a 50-50 fight, a very difficult fight, but let's say Canelo does get rid of him, I just really don't see anyone else at 160 pounds, 154 pounds in either one of those divisions moving up or being at 160 to be able to do anything with Canelo. He's too skilled. He's too strong. He's too quick. I think that he'd have to move up to 168 to fight someone that's much bigger to even cause Canelo enough problems to make him think about, different things in the ring or, to give him any kind of trouble. But that's a fantastic question. I appreciate that, SwizzKid. The next one is from Daniel Cortez. If Mikey loses, would you like Munguia to avenge his loss maybe in September versus Spence at 154? I think that'll be a fantastic fight. I think Munguia is very, very strong. But I think Munguia has a little bit more learning to do before he's ready for a guy like Errol Spence. A lot of people say I don't like Errol Spence or that I just hate on Errol Spence. And I give you the honest truth. Errol Spence is not an elite level boxer, but he's good fundamentally, and he has an elite level body attack. I don't know if Jaime Munguia is experienced enough to handle that as of yet. And the reason why I like Mikey against Spence, even though there's a huge size discrepancy, is because Mikey not only have the boxing skill over Errol Spence, he also is very powerful for a smaller frame. And now that he's getting more muscle added on, he's tightening up the core. I think that helps his chances. So if Mikey does lose, I don't think Munguia would be the fight I would want to see right away to avenge his loss. I'd like to see Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford, because clearly, if you want to say you're the best, if you beat Mikey Garcia, congratulations, kudos, but go ahead and fight Terence Crawford because he's been calling out your name. But that's a fantastic question, Daniel. I appreciate it. The next question is from Junior Moreno. 2018 was a great year of exposing. Who else may be exposed possibly in the year of 2019? Fantastic question, Junior. I'm going to be honest with you. The other names that I see could possibly be exposed is in Errol Spence Jr. I could see him possibly being exposed because I see too many flaws, but I think he's a good fighter. I just don't think that he's the fighter that people make him out to be. I think Deontay Wilder could be further exposed. Everyone knows his limitations right now, but you have some guys saying that he needs to have this rematch with Tyson Fury because they think that, he still has a lot to prove. Being a one-trick pony is not enough for me to need to see a rematch right away, especially after I've seen you got outboxed and outworked for at least 10 rounds. I'm sorry, I just don't. As far as anyone else being exposed, I could see the Charlos, if they take on more elite competition, have trouble yet again. I also see Tank Davis. I think Tank Davis is on the borderline of being a good fighter or a hype job. I don't know which one Tank Davis is. He has to take a step up fight. He has to fight someone that's highly touted. I like Tank Davis. I think he has a good skill set and he's very strong. I just need him to see him fight someone that's been calling his name. Tevin Farmer's constantly calling your name. Take the fight. And if your level's above him, beat him and stop him and get the belt. Unify. Make a statement. Vasyl Lomachenko's called your name. Take on that. We know Floyd Mayweather's protecting Tank Davis, so I'm not surprised, but I just want to see him in a legitimate fight so I can know where he lies. That's a fantastic question. The next question is from Ricardo Lopez. Potential and realistic fights that need to happen in 2019. I'll say Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, or even a potential Mikey Garcia and Terence Crawford if Mikey wins. I could see Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Joshua Wilder. I'd love to see Big Baby Miller versus Dillian White. I'd love to see Jaime Munguia versus Jermell Charlo. And I think all of these fights could potentially be made. But, you need promoters to be able to work together because making the best fights are typically going to have to be done across platforms. I think even a Manny Pacquiao versus Danny Garcia will be a very interesting fight. The next question from Ricardo Lopez is what happened to Boxing Loco. Boxing Loco will actually be back. He had to step away for a moment, but don't worry, we'll bring more into that. We'll bring more guests, co-hosts, things like that to the show. We have a lot of surprises in store for you guys, so stay tuned, stay locked onto the channel. We're going to be more interactive, but that's coming up very soon. Did the Charlotte sisters not only got exposed in the ring, but outside the ring too, with their egos being so hyped that one of them actually cried because he lost his fight. Absolutely. You could tell these guys were put on a pedestal by all these biased channels, and they started believing their own hype. And so that led to them even crying on the podium, because if you can't even take a loss and be mentally strong about it, what does that say about you as a fighter? When you face tough times in the ring, are you ever going to be the same after this loss? That would bring the question to my eyes. To me, that shows weakness that any other fighter can use before a fight to get in their heads. You're absolutely right, Ricardo. These guys are going to have a lot of issues, especially with mind games and doubting themselves going forward, especially if they fight better competition. I think the biggest question is, where do they go next? The next question is from Sir Lopez George. If Mikey beats Spence, do you think Loma will want that smoke? I think Loma will say he wants that smoke. I don't think Loma is actually going to want it. I think Loma's going to see that Mikey's so much bigger, so much stronger. I think that, and Mikey is bigger and stronger than him now. I think Lomachenko would say he wants it, but I don't think he'd actually want it. I'd be very surprised if he'd aggressively pursue Mikey after a victory like that. And that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. Maybe Mikey and Loma happens right away after. I mean, you never know. The next question is from Boxing Monster. Nuke, I heard the Charlo's card got a 1.6 rating on Fox. Seems low for a Fox sporting event on a Saturday night. What are your thoughts? By the way, we should not compare it to free fights on ESPN or HBO. Fox is available in every free market in the USA. That's a great statement, Boxing Monster. Fox is available everywhere in every market in the U.S., so their rating should be extremely high. I think Terrence Crawford's was over 2 million. I think that when you look at the Charlos, they were meant to be showcase fights. So they're going to get good ratings just off the fact on what network they're on. But they were supposed to be showcase fights, and so since they didn't have elite or top level competition, I think that's why their ratings didn't pop off the charts, or these guys didn't do 5 million, is because these guys weren't fighting anyone legitimate, anyone serious. These were just showcase fights. These guys need to step up and fight, and if they want to be the stars that they say they are, they need to position themselves to be those stars, to fight those guys. Look at Jermell Charlo. He blew the Jarrett Hurd unification fight because he was taking too long trying to be the bum slayer. Look at Jermall Charlo. You say you want to fight all these guys in the middleweight division, but PBC has none of those belts. Eddie Hearn made it multiple offers. Why were you not at DAZN? Even for a one fight deal, just if you felt you were that good, take a one fight deal, go to DAZN, get a belt, and come back. If you're that good, that's all I'm saying. But it's a great question, Boxing Monster. The next question is from Swiss Kid 316. What's up again, Swiss? Who punches do you think hurt Triple G more, Canelo's or Jacobs? And also, did Triple G's punches hurt Canelo or Jacobs more? That's a very tough question. After the Canelo fight, you see Triple G face all marked up, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was getting hurt completely. On the Jacobs fight, you didn't see the same level of damage on Triple G's face, but you saw Triple G back up in both fights. And I don't think as many eyes were on the Jacobs fight as there were on the Canelo fight, so people tend to notice the little details in the Canelo fight more than they noticed in the Jacobs fight. People really don't realize how good of a fighter Danny Jacobs is. And Triple G set out to the Danny Jacobs fight. Danny Jacobs is probably one of the best, if not, the second best middleweight in his opinion. And I took that to heart because I seen him move Triple G and fight Triple G way differently than anyone else has fought him. And I also thought the knockdown against Triple G was more of a push than it was a genuine knockdown. That's just my perspective. I know a lot of people are going to see it completely different, but I think that Daniel Jacobs is a tough out. I think Daniel Jacobs definitely has elite level knockout power. I know his last few fights, a lot of people look and say, well, he didn't look good against Sergey Derevyanchenko. Well, you got to understand that he's fighting a guy that he sparred 150 rounds with. So he's not going to look fantastic against that guy. You can't go in and dominate a guy that you sparred 150 rounds with, because he knows all your moves. He knows everything you're going to do. The fact that Danny Jacobs went in, got the win, and I don't think he's lost more than 4 rounds, was a great job. Now, as far as who punches hurt more, I'll say it's pretty close. I mean, I wouldn't say one way or the other. I'll say it's about even. I think both of these guys have about the same power. I think Canelo hits harder to the body, and he's more skilled at being able to land his punches more precisely than Danny Jacobs. I've seen Canelo land more precise punches that affected Triple G more than Daniel Jacobs, because even though Daniel Jacobs is a great boxer, he didn't land as precisely as Canelo did. So I'll give Canelo that credit. That's a great question, Swiss. The next question is from D. Jefferson. A possibility of a Josh Warrington versus Oscar Valdez fight. What do you think about that one? I think that'll be a fantastic fight. I don't know how far these guys are being able to make that fight, but I rate Oscar Valdez very highly. I think he's a superstar level of fighter. He just doesn't get the recognition he deserves, and that's unfortunate. Great question. The next question is from Anthony Trejo. Shout out to the IBFP, the best show on YouTube by a long shot. Thank you, brother. My question is, how do you feel about the new age marination process? I hear these young prospects getting asked about their up and coming prospects answering that's a great fight in the future, when they should be fighting each other to prove themselves, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on this? And honestly, to be 100% unbiased, I think the boxing game lacks superstars. And, I think there's only two legitimate superstars. There's one in North America in Saul Canelo Alvarez, and the others in the UK in Anthony Joshua. Other than that, there's no actual full bona fide superstars. There's other very good fighters. There's other fighters that are stars. But to be a superstar that can fill up a football stadium, there's only two guys I know can do that, and that's Saul Canelo Alvarez, and that's also Anthony Joshua. Now, if you're saying Errol Spence and Mikey can fill up a stadium, they need each other to do that. So the winner of that fight could elevate to that level, but we need superstars. So as far as this marination process, waiting and letting fights develop, sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. Look at Erickson Lubin against Jermell Charlo. I thought that, he needed a little more time before he jumped into that type of fight, because he had been fighting guys that were so unproven. You just didn't think that he was ready for any type of step up. So if you're looking at the marination process, I think that's what makes stars. I think that's, out of the best young guys, who's the best? I think that would be a great thing to create a superstar. I think a guy like Teofimo Lopez could benefit greatly from something like that. If you fought another young guy, he could be the next superstar waiting right there in the wings. These are the type of things that you need from young fighters to step up and fight the big fights at a young age, and then people start expecting more and more, and that fan base will continuously grow. Taking on the big and most challenging fight is what builds your reputation, your brand, and your fan base. That's a great question. The next question is from Gentle Uprising. Well, now that Mayweather's exhibition match ended and he knocked out a kickboxer 2 weight classes below his in a boxing match, who do you see Mayweather Jr. fight next, Pacquiao or Canelo? That's his first question. Good question, Gentle. I honestly don't know. I think that's a hard way. If Floyd Mayweather really wants the money that he says he wants, he needs to fight Canelo Alvarez. If he wants, what he thinks will be easier, then he can take Manny Pacquiao. But I don't know at this point from Floyd. I mean, he's so up and down on everything, but I don't expect Floyd to take a Canelo fight right away, because I think he looks at Canelo as probably being the most dangerous man as far as comes as taking his O. I don't think he would want to rematch Canelo. I really don't. I think that he likes to talk about Canelo. He likes to relive that moment, but I don't think he wants Canelo again. Also, who do you think would win a hypothetical dream match, Prime Mayweather or Lomachenko? I think Mayweather dominates Lomachenko in a hypothetical Prime match. I think Floyd Mayweather, a lot of people don't realize that when Floyd Mayweather was Pretty Boy Floyd, he was much more aggressive, and he was more of a Bud Crawford style of boxer. Like, he would go for the knockout more. He would be more aggressive. But then as he got older, his hands kind of wore, and they're easy to get injured. So he's been more of just a straight counter puncher. So if you look at it like this, I think Floyd Mayweather just would be too strong for Lomachenko at a smaller weight class in his prime. I think he would just be too much. Can Mayweather still fight Lomachenko at this stage in his career? I highly doubt it. I think Lomachenko would have Floyd Mayweather's number at this point, because Floyd Mayweather, his skill set is diminished too much. At this point in his career, he's too slow, and he's lost a lot of luster in his skills. I just don't see him being able to be anywhere near the level of fighters he was, and no matter how good his training camp is, I just don't be able to see him compete with an elite level fighter right now without getting dominated. That pretty much answers that for you, Gentle Uprising. Thanks for the question, brother. The next question comes from Martin Smith. Sup, man, I'm Martin. Not to overlook the fight between Spence and Mikey, but I have Mikey outboxing him and taking more punches than what people expect because of his chin. But I came here to ask you to break down the Mikey versus Crawford fight. That's a great question, Martin Smith. Thank you very much, by the way, Martin. I think the Mikey versus Crawford's fight is a good fight. These guys fought once in the amateurs. Terrence Crawford won that fight. Now, Mikey Garcia and his team say Terrence Crawford, he was running in the fight. Terrence Crawford said, hey, we just outbox you. I think that's a good fight. I think at this point in their careers, depending on how great Mikey looks at welterweight, I think that would be a hell of a fight to make, should he get past Errol Spence. And I think that would be more of a 50-50 fight because he would have already shown power and a chin to be at 147. So I feel like he would have those attributes that have carried up, and he'd be able to compete with Terrence Crawford at this weight. I think it'll be a 50-50 fight. I think it'll be a chess match and a back and forth. I'd slightly favor Terrence Crawford just off the simple fact that he has he still has the size advantage similar to Spence, not as big though. But you got to understand the reason why I would favor Crawford instead of a Spence is because Crawford is an elite level boxer as well. So not only is Mikey having to deal with the size, he's also dealing with an elite level boxer. And that's going to make that fight 10 times more difficult than any other fight he could have against an Errol Spence. I have no doubt that Mikey can outbox Spence on any given day. The power in being able to absorb those shots and use lateral movement is the only thing in question about that fight. So I think a Crawford versus Mikey would be a very close fight, a tactical fight, a chess match. It could go either way. Mikey could win that fight, but I would give a slight edge to Terrence Crawford because I just think that Terrence Crawford physical attributes along with the size and experience at welterweight might be a little bit too much for Mikey. But that's a fantastic question, Martin. Gus Aguino, what are your thoughts on Mikey's recent physique? I think Mikey's recent physique is a fantastic thing. I think the fact that Mikey's dedicating so much time to his body and attention to his nutrition and getting his body right for this, because he already knows that he has the right style and physical stature for this fight. But you got to understand is that Mikey, even though he's an elite level fighter, he wants to make sure that his body is right at the weight without getting gassed and drained. So I think that everything he's doing with the snack program has been fantastic. Okay, now the next question here is from Aldur Sharad. Now, bro, you need to make a long video about the difference between fight purses of 7, 8, or 9-figure purses of today and the value of a fight purse back in the old times, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, etc. That'll be fun to watch for us hardcore boxing fans. I think that would be. It'll require a little bit more research, but I'll definitely break that down for the hardcore fans, so stay on the lookout for that. I appreciate your comment. The next comment is from German. You should do polls to give us the final awards, IBF 2018 awards, best fighter, best trainer, knockout of the year, round of the year, so on and so forth. I know you are the best YouTube boxing channel of the year. I'll absolutely put up those polls for you, German. I understand we're slightly past the New Year's, though, but we can still do that. I'm sure everyone would still like to give their thoughts and opinions. Great question. The next question is from El Chapo. I think it's time to recognize the work you've been putting in on these punks. Shouts out to the homie Ibfp. And all the great content you bring to the folks that support the channel. Oh yeah, fuck the whole LDBC and all those dick riding fags. Well, I appreciate the love, El Chapo. I appreciate, everything that you gave us, the compliments. And you know what? We're just going to keep bringing all the stuff to you real and unbiased and honest as we can. Thank you very much, El Chapo. Marcus Garcia's question, not a question, but Team Canelo and Team Mikey Garcia. Hey, I respect that, Marcus. Those are two top-level, elite-level fighters. The next question is from El California. Do you think Triple G will make a comeback and become a champion again now the division is competitive, or do you think he's looking for an easy road to retirement? I think Triple G knows that Canelo was probably his most difficult fight at 160, but I also think that Triple G wants to be a world champion again, wants to try to cement his legacy, and wants to also get giant paydays. And I think the best way for him to do that is to go to DAZN. He could also move up in weight. but he'll still need to fight the zone fighters, PBC fighters, or ESPN. So his first and most important task is to find a home of a network that on what division he plans on fighting. He could fight David Benavidez, he could fight Callum Smith, or he could fight Zuro Ramirez, and he's going to have to go on a different platform for pretty much every guy. So it all depends on that. And then also, as far as the big money paydays, that's at the zone. All the world champions at 160, that's on the zone. So that should kind of lead him on what road he needs to follow. Thank you very much for that question. The next question is from Cali Kings Boxing. Can you talk about the LDBC trying to plant the seed with speculation that Mikey might be on steroids to justify Spence losing if he does? That's a great question. I think the reason why the LDBC is saying these things is simply because they're afraid of what can happen when Mikey Garcia gets in the ring with Errol Spence. They see Mikey taking this fight serious. They see that Mikey's not coming here to lay down. They know Mikey's a great boxer. So you got to understand that when guys don't have logic or reason to argue with, they start making up stuff like this. And so this is completely honest about it, is that these guys are just making up crap just so they can kind of come at Mikey Garcia and try to taint his name should Errol Spence Jr. take an L. You see, these guys don't want to be exposed as hype jobs. These guys were very quiet and silent after Jermell and Jamal Charlo fights, and they were also quiet after Deontay Wilder fights. But thank you very much. That's a fantastic question. Now, the next question is from Commander 4465. This question reads, Mikey, Modest, Josecito, out of those three underdogs, who has the best chance at an upset? I honestly think that Mikey Garcia does, but then after Mikey, I think Abner Modest. Depends on how he comes in this fight defensively. I think he could beat Tank Davis. I know a lot of people are writing him off, but I've been seeing a lot of the stuff being put up online about Abner Modest and him training hard and him being focused. And I think that he could have a legitimate chance against Gervonta Davis at a possible upset. I think that defensively, he has to make sure that he uses lateral movement, head movement, and he's able to absorb some of those shots. He can't sit there and take a whole lot of them, but if he can take some and weather those storms early, he may be able to give Gervonta Tank Davis some hell and something to think about. But I think Mike is a clear-cut choice for that. I just think that it's just going to be a long night for Josecito and Abner Modest because of the skill and the power of the two guys that they're fighting. I think Mikey has the skill set. He's a 4-division world champion. He has so much experience, so much skill, and he's so much more proven that I think that he's going to be hell for Errol Spence Jr. Once again, thank you so much for the question. The next question is from Warlord. I hate to even do this. Seems black boxing vloggers are biased. Then again, naturally, you'd gravitate towards your own. But why are people not all saying Mikey is going to dope with Conti when very good boxers, black boxers, are in that snack regimen? Jacobs and them. Mikey seems committed. If he beats Spence, it'll be suspicious because of Conti. Stop. And like always, hashtag Team Nello. Thank you very much, Warlord. Now, I think that, and I don't ever like to make anything racial. I like to keep things, on just a skill set playing field. But I think that the Spence fans and, a lot of these different boxing bloggers, these guys are coming out hating on Mikey Garcia because they're scared. They're scared that their narrative is going to fail them when Spence is exposed against Mikey Garcia. Even they're scared to even go to a 12-round decision, even if it's Errol Spence Jr. wins. That's why they're hoping and pushing for a knockout. That's all they're pushing is knockout, early knockout, dominating knockout. Mikey has no chance because look how dumb they look. If you turn around and Mikey goes the whole 12 rounds with Errol Spence, they're going to be like, my God, I didn't know he could do that. I thought Spence was this, this monster that could beat everybody, that could stop everything, that knocks everything out. And you have to understand that Errol Spence Jr. is not the fighter that they think he is, but they will soon find out. But that's a fantastic question, Warlord. The next question is from Graham H. You stated in a recent video that Canelo is undefeated. I believe he has a loss, but I've already responded to him. And I wasn't responding in the reference to that, that Canelo was undefeated. I was trying to say that Canelo could go undefeated for the remainder of his career. So I apologize for the confusion on that. But that's a great question. D. Jefferson had another question. We always talk about Spence ducking Crawford, Charlo's ducking everyone, Wilder ducking AJ, Thurman ducking Bud. I know we all love Mikey Garcia on the IBFP. If we're going to be honest and unbiased, then where the hell is the video about Mikey Garcia ducking Bud Crawford? Mikey Garcia self-promotes and missed Bud at 130, 135, 140, now calls Spence out at 147 instead of Bud Crawford. Bud Crawford, who is truthfully Mikey's greatest challenge at 147. Okay, D. Jefferson, I appreciate that. And I'll break down your question. First, Mikey Garcia is not ducking Terrence Crawford at all. Terrence Crawford's fighting at 140 and Mikey Garcia was fighting at 135. These guys were winning belts in two different divisions. And so you can't say a guy's ducking each other when you're not fighting in the same division. And you can't say a guy's ducking someone when Mikey chooses to fight someone else moving up to 147. If Terrence Crawford and Mikey Garcia, let's say Mikey Garcia wins this fight against Errol Spence Jr., then at that point we can start judging Mikey on a potential clash with Terrence Crawford and seeing if these guys can make it. But even then it'll be hard to, because Mikey Garcia still has the option of going to fight Vasyl Lomachenko. I think the best fight that the fans would love to see is a Crawford-Mikey. But at the end of the day, if Crawford issues the challenge, the fans are demanding it, will Mikey take it? I think he will. I think Mikey has proven the fact that he'd be able to move up 2 weight divisions, risk his risk his health, risk everything, and, have a career-defining fight to make himself a superstar. Why wouldn't he fight Terrence Crawford, who's not going to be as strong physically as an Errol Spence Jr., but would be his greatest challenge because of his boxing ability? I think it's no doubt in my mind that, Mikey Garcia will be willing to take that fight. He's already fought Bud in the amateurs. I think that would be a great fight. I think it'll be a huge pay-per-view fight, and I think it'll be a very close and difficult fight for both fighters. But once again, thank you for that question, D. Jefferson. The next question comes from Rigo Ediola. If Mikey wins, Errol will he be pound for pound, or is Canelo still number 1 and Crawford number 3? I think that if Mikey wins, I think it'll be hard not to make a case for him as number 1. It'll be extremely hard. Because if you have to look at what happens if he wins. If he wins, not only did he move up 2 divisions, fights the supposed, boogeyman, wins another world championship, becomes a 5-division world champion. It would be very hard for me not to put him at number 1. So I think I'd put Mikey at number 1, Canelo and Bud Crawford basically at a tie for 2 or 3. You could put those guys either way, depending on how you see them or judge them. And depending on who Canelo fights next, let's say Canelo fights Danny Jacobs and beats Danny Jacobs, then you can easily elevate Canelo right back to number 1. So it's just a game of musical chairs. Terrence Crawford at this point, to maintain his number 1 spot in the pound for pound rankings, and to stay in, to compete in the 1 and 2 spots, he's going to have to get a big fight and a big win over somebody soon. That's a fantastic question, Rigo Ediola. The next question is from D. Jefferson. Seems like tension is building up between Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney. Supposedly, Teofimo's dad said Teofimo beat Haney up in sparring. Now, Haney got heat for Teofimo in his camp. That's a good fight between great prospects. What do you think? I think that's a fantastic fight between 2 amazing prospects. I would love to see that fight. I think that's the type of fight that could create a superstar. They have contrasting styles, but at the same time, they're very, very good prospects, and they could potentially be elite fighters one day. And so at this point, I just don't know if their promotional companies, Top Rank and PBC, would be willing to pit those guys against each other at this point in their careers. I just, sometimes promoters get in those things where they don't want to match these guys off too early. They want to build them up before they match them off. But that's a fantastic question, D. The next question comes from Night on the Tiles. My question is a 2-parter. Do you think it's possible for Ness from TBV to crawl any further up Wilder's arse? And if so, do you think being in that dark hole will increase the guy's lack of knowledge and his ignorance, assuming it's actually possible to be more ignorant than he already is? That's actually a fantastic question, Night on the Tiles. And I'm going to be honest with you about Ness and the boxing voice. I call him the biased boxing voice. And the reason why I do is because these guys openly admit to being Deontay Wilder fanboys. There's no rhyme or reason. These guys are just fans of the guy, and there's nothing wrong with being fans of Deontay Wilder, but the fact that they're fans of Deontay Wilder has caused them to lose all objectivity when it comes to any matters relating to Deontay Wilder. Basically, these guys think that Wilder's always right. They think that Anthony Joshua is ducking Wilder. They don't care to look at any of the facts or the proofs. They automatically assume that Deontay Wilder is right in every scenario. And that's the type of bias that we can't stand for and we can't even listen to, because it's complete garbage at that point. I respect what those guys got going on over there, but I just don't like all the bias and hypocrisy when it comes to Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. I mean, these guys are the same type of guys that's saying that Anthony Joshua has a bad resume, but Deontay Wilder has a great resume because he fought Luis Ortiz, which makes no sense. Luis Ortiz has never been a world champion. Luis Ortiz does not have a signature fight. These guys are just, and I'm going to be honest and unbiased, fanboys of Deontay Wilder, and they can't be counted on to be objective and give you actual real boxing facts. But thank you for that night on the tiles. The next question comes from Uncle Ben. What city you stay at, my dude? I'm in the Los Angeles area. If you ever need any help, I like your channel and you will expand. So if you need a hand, I appreciate that, Uncle Ben. We're actually down here in Dallas, Texas, Uncle Ben. Dallas, Texas. That's right. The home of the Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia fight. And we're going to do quite a bit of traveling to LA for fights, to Las Vegas, and to Brooklyn for fights. So we're going to be all over, trying to get interviews, trying to, be at the fights, trying to get good footage, and, just trying to expand more throughout this year in 2019. It's the come up year is what I like to call it. So I appreciate that. And we may just reach out, Uncle Ben. I appreciate it. The next question comes from Slick Dude. Did the Floyd fight look staged as fuck to you, or am I missing something? Who lets the opponent train in their gym? That's a great question, Slick. The fight did look extremely staged to me. It looked like it was put on as more of a dramatic play or something. I don't know. Something about it didn't look and feel right. But I'm going to be honest with you, Slick. I think it was a legitimate fight. And the fact that the guy started crying at the end was really, really sad. So I just think it was a disgusting fight, but I think it was a legitimate one. But once again, this concludes the Q&A with the IBFP. Look for our voting poll Sunday, and we'll actually be putting out another one for the next Q&A for next Thursday. Once again, please share, like. You must absolutely subscribe. Thank you, fight fans.